Very welcome back to the Rossie Podcast. I'm joined again by Roscommon Hurl Sports editor Ian Cooney to look back on St. Brigid's loss in the All-Ireland Senior Club Football Final to Dingle yesterday. Ian, look, a magnificent game of football, it has to be said. Both teams gave it everything. You know, one of the real great All-Ireland finals at either club or inter-county level. But unfortunately for St. Brigid's, just came up short again by a point, and it's gutting. I said, we're not from Brigid's and we're gutted, so you can only imagine what it's like for the lads and everyone in, St. Brigid's this morning.
Yeah, they're waking up on Monday morning, Darragh, and I'd say they probably don't know what's hit for the second time in 3 years to come up short in an All-Ireland final. They haven't played well. They're not coming home with the Andy-American Cup, and it is gutting for all concerned. Anthony Cooney, his management, his players, club officers, supporters, they gave it everything. But the fact that it was probably one of the best All-Ireland finals we've ever seen up the park will be a little consolation to them. They just didn't get over the line, and that's the currency in this day and age. You go up against a Kerry team in an All-Ireland final, a lot of things have to go right for you. A lot of things did go right for Brigid, but just not enough.
Yeah, I know it's great to win a classic, but makes it even harder to lose it. You nearly, not that you'd rather lose by 6 or 7, but you can nearly accept it more. And when you've played quite well, and you lose a game like that, it is hard to take. Look, going through it, the first 10 minutes, Dingle, they set the stall out. They held the ball, I think, for the first 2 or 3 minutes. It was patient. They got 4-0 up. And you're nearly sitting there thinking, and Brigid were struggling to get on the ball even at that stage. Say, have they maybe got a bit of stage fright? Is it just Dingle just going to control this game, and will it just not happen? But in fairness to them, geez, they really brought it back, and that's thanks to maybe the likes of Shane Canan, Conor Hand, a few of those players who were absolutely fantastic, especially in that first half. And they go in leading at half time as well.
Yeah, the first 10 minutes, Darragh, were eerily familiar to the 2013 final against Ballymun. That was 2-4 to 1 point down in that game. And if Niall Geeney's shot had gone inside the post rather than hitting the butt of the post, and Billy O'Connor blazed a chance wide when it was easier to put the ball in the net, it could have been 2-4 to a point. But it wasn't, and Brigid got back into the game. Shane Canan was doing well. I'm sure we're going to talk about Rory Fannin later on. One statue of great leadership. And, they slowly but surely they got back into it, kicked 5 points in a row. And they were in a very, very good position at half time. Would have, I'd say, bitten your hand off for that position they were in, considering what happened in the first 10 minutes. So they were in a great position to win the game. And of course, Rory Fannin gets that goal. Feel that the experience of 2 years ago is going to kick in, and they might see the deal done. But they were the ones that were hanging on towards the end. Of course, it takes Rory Fallon's extra time. In extra time, they go ahead again, but Dingle reeled them back. And then coming up the home stretch, those points from Shane Canan and Charlie O'Carroll, you think, yeah, this is it now. The knowledge from that game 2 years ago we're going to get what happened in those last few minutes. It's going to haunt them, Darragh. Like, it was really, really just heartbreaking. I mean, for me, the ease of which Thomas could have been forced through and kicked those 2 points in jig time to bring them back into the game. And then Brigid's have the ball in the final to effect. A pass from Ben to Ben O'Carroll doesn't go to plan. Dingle come up the other end of the field, and there was nothing getting to the winner. And all of a sudden, as well as you played, everything you've put on the line, for the course of a season, it just goes up in a smoke in that instant. And as you say yourself, it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's just those small moments, tired minds in extra time, tired legs, people cramping up, it's really, as I said, it's those fine margins. And look, you're looking at performances like for the likes of Dingle, I said Tom O'Sullivan. Now, I know we wore 4 on his back. He didn't play cornerback at all. I think he was nearly, do you know what? He nearly popped up just everywhere. And you have to sit back and nearly appreciate some of those Dingle players who are playing for Kerry as well, like Thomas Sullivan. Anytime he gets into that scoring position, especially yesterday, he put it over. Um, Paul Ganey, scoring wise, probably was quieter. But again, you know when you're looking at Paul Ganey there and you're appreciating how tough a job Piers Frost had on him, just his physicality, the link play, and everything. Some of those Dingle fellas, maybe the Kerry cuteness, the Kerry bit of experience on an All Ireland final day from those kind of players pulled them through in the end. I don't know.
Yeah, well, Thomas Sullivan was a freak of nature, really. Just a brilliant, brilliant player. I think his second point, he just picked up at the outside of his boot, just under the Cusick. That was absolutely effortless. But he kind of came in and out of the game as well.
Did
Had
you?
that goal just Darragh. I think he kept the point before half time to leave us at 7-7. And then he was there in injury time, get those 2 points back before Keenan kicked the winner. So he's a clutch player for them. He comes up with the big scores. I thought Pierce Frost did well
Mm.
on Keeney, but it came with a risk, and that's why I suppose the black card came for the trip. Um, and you had Dylan Geeney on number 12. He just kicked some outrageous scores. They were absolutely superb. And the decision to keep Mark O'Connor in Ireland was very much justified. Well, he was excellent. Kicked a 2-pointer and made some quick notches in the middle of the field. And probably a game saving prop denied Stack a goal. And these are big players for Dingle, and they all stood up late on the day. And look at the Brigid side, they might have maybe one or two more players that got to the level that their best players got to the Andy American Cup this week.
I know, and I suppose look, and not to single out players because it was a solid Bridget's performance across the way, but I suppose the four players I looked at who gave fantastic performances: Brian Stack, Shane Kinane, Connor Hand, and obviously Rory Fallon. I thought they just, do you know what? They showed why they're county players yesterday. They just stood up, and it was almost like they were saying we're going to drag our team through this game, and clutch moments, I suppose, from all of them really. Connor, we'll go to, I suppose, the one that everyone's talking about is Rory's equaliser at the end. I suppose they had a free. Connor Carroll's shots dropped short. They managed to get it back out. Nearly was forgotten about in his Seddon gives the ball back to Connor Hand. He actually chips it up along the ground. He solos with either foot. He goes right foot, left foot, pings it over to Rory Fallon. Like, that was fantastic, even in that pressure. And then Rory, I suppose he knows he has to go for it. You're not going to get another opening for a 2-point shot, but to put it over the bar. I suppose that just in itself, in those pressure moments, showed the class of some of those British players.
Well, it shows the natural footballing ability to have, Darragh. I mean, that they can trust themselves in that cauldron. Everything is on the line, and you have to work 2 points score. And as you talk about there, what Conor Hand did, but what Rory Fallon did was the close of this word. I would hand on heart say that was probably the best performance for a Roscommon player in the big game that I've ever seen Croke Park. I just thought he was that good. His leadership, his physicality. He scored 1-6. Like, it's just incredible. And, it didn't deserve to be on the losing team. Connor Hand just enhanced his reputation further. Just the way he took off and left Dingle players in his way, just mesmerising. It was brilliant to watch. Brian Stack was Brian Stack. I'd say he was still feeling the effects from that injury he had against Scotland, but like, he just never let it define him. He just kept coming for more. It was absolutely superb. And Shane Kinane delivered his best game in a British jersey this year, and that's the sort of talent he has. Yes, he made mistakes, but he did some really, really good things. I think there was one catch there during the match
Yeah.
that was just out of this world, spectacular. One was talking about it in the press box. One of many moments in the game, where people were just kind of, left spellbound by what was taking place on the pitch. And as you heard before,
Yeah.
players that really, really stood up to the plate. But Pierce Frost did well. The likes of Paul McGrath, we didn't see as much of as we did in maybe Scottstown in another game. Ben O'Carroll started well. but have drifted out of the game then at the last. I think that we had that he missed got to him. Um, Bobby Nugent had a good few moments before half time, but like overall, I think before the game, you guys were talking about Brigid's the collective get them over the line, but it was really, the individual moments of brilliance that kept them in the game.
Mm.
And I think Dingle as a team probably played better over the course of the game, and that's why they're champions.
Yeah, and you're mentioning some of those players. They are county players, and you're looking at Rory Fallon, who maybe just hasn't got to the heights of what we seen there yesterday, wearing in the British jersey for our in a Roscommon jersey so far. In the 2 or 3 years he's been there, because if I remember correctly, I thought he was excellent in the final 2 years ago as well. And I suppose he was a big prospect. I know he went to rugby for a year or so, came back, but there was a lot of talk about him, from a young age, especially starring for Brigid's, that he go on and become a big player for Roscommon. I suppose you'd be hoping now that he can use this club form as the catalyst to come into Roscommon this year and become one of the main men, to take over a Niall Daly type of player in that back line, because he's all the attributes. I said 1-6 from wing back in an All Ireland final is sensational. And I think even just the way he spoke, I heard him do a couple interviews with the national media. And again, this puts to bed anything to do with players speaking before matches, and that he was open, honest, no BS answers or ever. Ask him a question, he'll give you a straight answer. And it kind of just shows, let's let the football do the talking.
Well, as you say, Darragh, he burst out the feet in 2020 when Brigid's going back young to win the Fahy Cup. And, maybe he hasn't kicked on as quickly as we would have liked, but over this campaign, he's been absolutely superb. And as you say, the way he carries himself, like he's a brilliant, brilliant leader of that team, a brilliant ambassador for it. And I've written a piece this week that, I think he's a future Roscommon captain, absolutely 100% nailed on. Just shows everything that you want from your leaders in a team. And what he did yesterday in the park, was just out of this world. It was superb. It was leadership defined. It would give you hope that guys like him can really step up the plate now in the Roscommon jersey, because we are losing experienced transfer players in the Primrose Pool. Guys to fill that void. I suppose Brian Stack is the guy that's in recent years, Enda Smith, but now Rory Fallon, he looks like he's ready to step up to the plate and become a huge leader, huge player in this Wisconsin.
Yeah, so you go into extra time on the back of that. Bridges obviously gets a massive lift. And to bring that into extra time, I think Rory Fallon got the first 3 points. Yeah, he got another 2-pointer as well. So you can see his confidence was sky high at that stage. And, I thought for pretty much a lot of extra time, Bridges were the better team. And it was looking like one or two times, maybe at the first half of extra time, and then in the second half of extra time when they're 2 up with maybe 2 or 3 minutes to go, that it was just going to look like they were going to see it out. They were going to use the bit of experience from 2 years ago just to see it out. So yeah, I suppose, look, it is hard just to be critical, because again, players going down with cramp, the subs bench having to be emptied. A few probably Bridges players coming on there that would never expected to have come on in an All Ireland final as well. So I suppose it's just it's the mind really that can it's trying to concentrate really in extra time, and I suppose not let your legs to take over and that. But I suppose they will have regrets in extra time.
Yeah, a lot of the players are running on fumes in extra time. Darragh, you could see it as the energy to track players just maybe wasn't there, and that's understandable because it had been such a attritional game at that point. It's the ease that Dingle were able to get those scores. It just all throughout the game, I just felt that Dingle were just able to get those scores that bit easier. They just had to work so much harder for their scores, and often it took that individual brilliance to get the crowd going, whereas Dingle just could do it with far more straightforward. If you like, to play as well as they played in 2 All Ireland finals and not win any of them, that's the killer. And when you're so close to something and you've given everything, you just think to yourself, where are we going to find that extra 2, 3, 4% that will get us over the line? If you go to an All Ireland final and you don't perform, you put your hands up and said you didn't
Yeah.
perform. But to be so close and not win either of them, that's just a killer.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it. I suppose the fact they lost 2 years 2 years ago by a point as well. It will. I think even unfortunately that Glen game will come up again because it'll just even add the bit of hurt, more hurt now to lose to All Ireland club finals. AIB go at the line the toughest, and you know what is probably fair enough because you're starting back at the bottom of the mountain again. You're going into the Roscommon group stages, getting through that. We've seen the battles of Pierce's. Connacht All Ireland semi final. Like, it's so hard to get to a club final, and you may never play in a club final again. I think that's why it means so much as well when you win it. Because I was looking at the list, the Roll of Honour in the program. I think there's very few clubs that even have two, three, and then maybe five or something. Very few. So if Bridges could have got to that illustrious list of even just getting two, you're suddenly in the all-time great clubs.
Yeah, I think 2 years ago, Darragh, it was the innocence of youth on Brigid's shoulders. It was the first time it was all new to this particular group of players. And the fact that they played so well for 55 minutes of that game and were just tripped at the line by Glen, you put that down to just not having enough of experience to, get the job done. This time we all felt that the experience of 2 years ago was starting them. And as I referenced earlier on, Rory Fallon gets that goal. You expect Brigid to kick on and maybe seal the deal. They didn't. In extra time, they're 2 points up, 3 minutes of extra time in, and they didn't get the job done. And you think to yourself, well, did they really learn the lesson from 2 years ago? Again, these margins are just so taken away for them. And, if they ever get there again, they're going to be coming up against another Glen or a Dingle, an equally good team. Those doubts now are in the back of the mind. Even though the age profile of the team is just scarily young, those doubts are there. Will we ever get over the line? And, that's going to become a problem for them now. They've lost 2 All Ireland finals in 3 years. And there's no guarantee that they're going to get back from the going.
Yeah.
Even though they're good enough to get back from the going. And I have no doubt that they have the skill set and a lot of ingredients you need in an All Ireland club final. So you actually get over the line and bring that cup across to Shannon, to Brigid's, like the team in 2013 did. This sort of can they get over the line in an All Ireland final conundrum is going to be with them.
Yeah. Just a word on a couple of decisions. I thought a couple of maybe harsh calls went against Bridges towards the end. Now, again, I'm not here to really criticize any referee because it's a tough job. We need referees in our game, and it's what the new rules and the fast paced nature and that. Just felt Martin McNally set the bar really high early on. That he was letting stuff go. I don't know what the free count was, especially in the first half. Seemed very low. It was almost like it would nearly have to be a stonewall free to get a free. You weren't going to get a free easy. And I just thought that bar being set so high maybe, cost Bridges a couple of frees towards the end. Maybe if it was 5 minutes into the game at the start, they may have got those frees. I suppose it's harder to give a free late on when a team especially is chasing a game. I don't know what you thought of it.
Yeah, I thought a few marginal calls went Dingle's way. Certainly, there was an incident where Stack appeared to be blocked by Dingle. That's a black card.
Yeah.
Wasn't picked up on. Eddie Nolan there at the end. Is that a free? On any other position of the pitch, it probably is. Then Dingle will say that Brian Stack's proper part by Mark O'Connor rebounded off Brian Stack and shouldn't have gone out for a part like which Shane Canan actually appointed. So I'm not so sure if the decisions even themselves out over the course of the game. Like there were potential decisions on both sides. It was a free for Dingle in the second half. Now Connor didn't get it, but it was definitely inside the arc. But it was far outside the arc for 2.3.
Yeah.
Could have been controversial if it had been scored. So yeah, I think Bridges would have the insight to think that some big decisions didn't go their way, but in a game of such magnitude, that does prepare for the course, unfortunately. And I think it's probably Brigid's game management stretch that, you know, that they need to focus on and why they just didn't get themselves over the line.
Yeah, yeah, look, I think we summed it up. It's just majorly disappointing for everyone involved, the lads themselves. And again, they would have trained, especially since the club season started, almost like an intercounty team for the last 4 or 5 months. The hours, the travel back from wherever they are, coming back to Kiltoom to train. It's a long season. I suppose it begs the question, who will we be seeing in a Roscommon shirt from Bridges as well? I mean, it comes so quick, and I know they won't be thinking about that at all this morning. They'll want just a complete reset for maybe just a couple of weeks, just to get their just to come back from the high of a club, campaign and All Ireland final, and losing it at that, just to give them that bit of time to give a nice reset and a break as well. But look, you're looking at it and have the team here: Connor Carroll, Piers Frost, Robbie Dolan, Brian Stack, Rory Fallon, Shane Canan, Eddie Nolan, Connor Hand, Ben O'Carroll. They were all county players last year. So I suppose first off, Mark Dowd will be hoping all of them commit. The second question then is, could Sean Trundle, for instance, get a call? Is he as good as what's in our defence at the moment? Our squad, at least, I would argue so, yeah. Paul McGrath, absolutely. Um, I'm looking. Bobby Nugent, I think, was actually in there as maybe on the development squad or a squad player. But it'll be just interesting to see how many of that Bridges team line out for Roscommon this year.
It will, and I think the most important thing is that these British players get rest and be of huge benefit for Roscommon, later on in the campaign. Don't think any of us want to see a situation like when Glen won the All Ireland 2 years ago, that you had the likes of Conor Glass down in Lee about 5 or 6 nights ahead of hugging out. So these British players need a rest. They're entitled to a rest. I hope they get at least a month off. I know it's going to be to the detriment of Scotland's big campaign, but you know they have invested everything, their lives on hold, everything on the line in winning this All Ireland title, and mentally that will have been draining. It's a blow for Bridges, but it's a blow for Roscommon as well, because what you wanted was these Bridges players going bouncing into the Roscommon panel, you know, bringing with them the mantra of an All Ireland club champions. That's not going to happen now, and you have to imagine that. Hopefully, I'm wrong. That there's going to be a bit of a hangover among a large contingent of those players that put to get back into a Roscommon jersey. You just can't expect them to hit full throttle as to away. But I just hope that they get the time to charge the batteries. And I think in the long run, that'll be a huge benefit to us.
Absolutely. Look, touching on Roscommon before we leave it, they played Sligo final FBD game on Friday night. Ended up losing by a point. And again, a bit like Mayo and the week before, and I'm putting the caveat as pre-season and it's early days, and absolutely there's players to come back in and you're giving fellas chances and all that. But I suppose at the same time, it was a slight concern, going down. We're going down to Killarney against Kerry. Kerry, I was at fingers crossed, hoping that maybe David Clifford and Shawnee O'Shea and a few of those players might be given a couple of weeks off. No, they were playing McGrath Cup, so they'll be starting. So it'll be straight into it for Roscommon, into the fire of Division 1. And look, based on the last two performances, I really need to up it going into, well, Kerry anyways, but obviously the Division 1 campaign as well.
Yeah, Brampton was on fire for Dowd. They didn't play particularly well against Sligo. They were a bit disjointed, lethargic. Now, granted, there were so many changes from the last day, and in fairness to Mark Dowd, who has decided that he was going to keep the SPG League to ascertain the strength of the panel. But I'm not sure there was a whole lot of players that would have done themselves too many favors against Sligo. It wasn't a very good performance in the main, and yet, like Brigid on Sunday, were in pole position until Sligo hit those counters to win the match. So, if you were to ask me now, Darragh, the Roscommon team that would play against Kerry, I could tell you. I suppose that's where we're at with Roscommon at the moment. We're in transition. And marked out with the manager, and they will have to oversee that. and there's probably going to be a bit of pain along the way. But hopefully it'll be to the long term benefit of this team because we need to find new players. We lost the likes of Joe Smith, Ryan Haley, Kieran Porter. There's probably a few more on the current panel that are coming into the twilight of their career. It was interesting to hear Mark Dow talk in the aftermath of the Sligo game of not being able to put a time frame on David Murray's return, if he returns at all.
Mm.
So, you could be losing another player there. So, it is going to be a lot of chopping and changing in this Roscommon team. A period of transition is imminent. I'm just going to have to accept that and put the trust in these players because the lads that marked out is in there. They're the best players in the county. There's no one out there that I can think that isn't in there that you'd be kind of knock the door down to try and get into. So Kerry in Killarney could be a more difficult start. Look, they lost in Brack for the weekend. You look at the teams that Mayo Boy put out in the FBT League final, so there is definitely a pre-season feel to a lot of what's going on in the last couple of weeks, and I'd be sort of holding judgment on the current stats of this Roscommon team until I see them in a few big games.
Oh, absolutely. And again, as I said at the start, you have to put that caveat. It is pre-season. It is about trying new lads out. There's multiple changes happening in the game. There's disrupting flow and all that. So, and obviously they're not. You don't want to be peaking in January. You want to be peaking around May time. Hopefully, potentially for a couple of big wins. I'm looking at the team. Like, I suppose very few standout performances. I'd be looking probably Sen and Lam has been probably one of the better players the last couple of weeks. Dylan Rowan is probably becoming one of the main fellas in around that middle third for Roscommon. But yeah, I mean, apart from that, it's pretty hard to point to too many great performances. And you say there, it'll be hard to pick that team that goes to Killarney. I think I'll be looking at McCormack, you'd imagine, come back in. I don't know, Caleb Keogh could be rested. I think he said Keith Doyle and Conor Ryan were rested. Keane McKeown's probably injured, and Darragh Craig was on the bench, so he'll definitely start. He was actually one of the bright sparks against.
Yeah, I was looking at a spine of the team. We're probably going to have Aaron Brady in goal, Owen McCormack full back, Kim McKeown centre back, Rob Keogh, centre back, Conor Ryan, Keith Doyle in the middle of the field, Enda Smith centre forward. Maybe like Darragh Craig full forward, and then how you fit in the jigsaw pieces around that. So that would be my guess at the moment. What the spot and the team would be. I think Owen Ward has done quite well in the first few games, so he'd be in contention for a place. As I said, there's definitely 4, 5, 6 positions that team up for grabs, and there's probably 11, 12 players across the board in contention.
Yeah, look, to finish up on, and predictions and that is hard. I don't think anyone will definitely nationally will be thinking Roscommon will stay up. I think they'll be, if anyone's doing a league table, I'm sure they'll put Roscommon at number 8. And we just have to accept that. I think it's the same every year. So, you have to accept that, and probably rightly so, based on what we did last year as well in the championship. The big thing for me, though, look, I really don't. Okay, we want to stay up, but if we're competitive in 4 or 5 of those games, quite competitive, get good performances, I don't mind Roscommon going down. If we can bring, a bit of positivity into the championship, knowing that we've competed quite well, we might have picked up, a win or two along the way as well. That's what you want going into championship. You don't want basically 7 games, Roscommon not competitive in anything, and you'd be thinking, I suppose from their point of view, are we at this level at all? Because that's the thing. Division 1 can really sap the confidence out of you if you were taking bad losses every week, and you'd be playing Mayo Championship, another Division 1 team. You'd be going into playing more Division 1 and top end Division 2 teams. So competitive is what I'd be asking. I don't know what you'd be hoping for.
Yeah, I think competitive is probably the thing. I think focused have Roscommon as 4 to 11 to be relegated. The cookies are early throughout there. So I think it's a big ask for us to say in Division 1. Realistically, it's probably not going to happen, especially now that you're talking to some British players maybe for the first 2 or 3 games. The pivotal game for me would be Monaghan.
Yeah.
So no one is expecting us to go down to Kerry and win this weekend. But Monaghan and Dr. Great Park is the the one where we have to get something out of. And if we get something out of that, maybe we'll consider it from the head of the Armagh game that we played on Valentine's weekend. 4 home games. Obviously, they're the ones you target, and the 2 away chronic derbies. We've won in Salthill before, we've won in Castlebar before, but that's really sort of looking through the glass half full. It would be a brave man that would predict that Roscommon will stay in Division 1. And I'm like you there, I think probably Division 2 is probably our level. And given the period of transition that we're in, I'm not so sure you could come straight back up out of Division 2 if you went down there again. But the main thing is to stay there and, trying to get up on any given year. But in terms of Division 1, yes, it's going to be very, very hard. But it's important that we go to Kerry and put in a performance. So that we are going to get the division.
Yeah, well, look, it's all to look forward to. I'd rather look forward to the Division 1 campaign than maybe 2 or 3. So we can't be too picky. It's nice to look forward to playing the All-Ireland champions in the first league game. So we'll go at it again, 7 league games, then into Championship, and who knows beyond that. Ian, thanks as always for joining me this week. And remember, this podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.